Okay, everyone, thank you so much again for being here for our final advocacy chat of the year. It's definitely one of my favorite advocacy chats because it's an opportunity for me to be able to show all of you the incredible work that our CPAN chapter advocacy leaders, the individual advocates, the doctors, everybody that is actually part of CPAN, to show the impact of our collective efforts. And it's just a very, very special moment for me. Even though I think every month is a very interesting topic, this is very special because you really get to see what we're doing when we're interacting with the patients and survivors. And I'm really excited about having two of our CPAN chapter advocacy leaders as our special guests today. Angelina Lorello, who represents New York Cancer and Blood Specialists. She's one of our newer leaders and is doing a really outstanding job in her role. I'm very excited about having her today. And then we have Cynthia Przekop, or Cindy as we like to call her, and she represents Eastern Connecticut Hematology Oncology. And she's been with us for a few years, and Cindy does a great job as well, is always thinking of new ways to promote the chapter, and I think does a particularly good job in using social media as one of the many tools that we can use to reach our advocates. Next slide, please. Okay, so just a reminder for everyone about what CPAN's focus is. There's so many advocacy groups out there. There's advocacy groups that have been around for literally 100 years. There's a bunch of grassroots organizations that start every year. And though we have a lot in common, every organization has a very unique organizational focus. And our focus is really based around educating patients and survivors and caregivers who have been treated in a community oncology practice and independent cancer setting about the value and importance of preserving this type of cancer care. And we do that in many different ways, which you'll get highlights of today. Now, who can be a part of CPAN? Even though we have patients in the acronym, COA's Patient Advocacy Network, CPAN is open and inclusive to everybody, patients, caregivers, survivors, newly diagnosed patients, long-term survivors, anyone at the practice level, the staff, everybody is an advocate, and we encourage you to join us. And you'll see from this final bullet point that a lot of what we do that makes a huge impact is when we share our personal stories. And by the way, Angelina and Cindy both work in community cancer centers. I mean, that might be fairly obvious, but I don't want to assume that. So they're really seeing patients on an upfront level every single day. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to talk really fast, and this goes back to my early years of working in media buying with the media buyers in New York who taught me how to talk really fast. But just because I'm talking fast doesn't mean it's not important. I just want to get you over to Cindy and Angelina. So here is some highlights of our collective efforts in 2024. The number one bullet point there, because I'm super excited about this, is that we launched 6 new CPAN chapters this year, 2 in Arizona, 1 in Georgia, 1 in Maryland, 1 in Ohio, and 1 in Virginia. We hosted collectively over 29 advocacy and educational events across the United States. Our advocates had a presence on Capitol Hill. Again, our advocates for the time that we were on the Hill were cancer patients, survivors, caregivers, and many of our nurses. Our group of CPAN advocates represented 16 states, and the cancer survivors were represented multiple cancer types. We also provided, our CPAN chapters provided education on COA at CPAN through various community events. This could be something like having an educational table, passing out brochures, answering questions about what is community oncology, lots of fundraising walks. Now, COA or CPAN, we do not do any type of fundraising, but our CPAN leaders often will get involved in these community events as a way to bring attention to our organization and our advocacy efforts. Something that I'm also excited about drawing attention to, I don't think we think about this enough, I certainly think about it all the time, is we have 13, just this year alone, 13 practicing medical oncologists. So these are very, very busy people. Many of them are also CEOs who volunteered their time this year to educate our advocates. And to me, that speaks volumes about their dedication and belief in what we do with CPAN. And also, CPAN for many, many years has once again, led by our CPAN chapter leaders, have hosted members of Congress in their community oncology practice. Next slide, please. Okay, we are going to keep going. Several of our CPAN chapter leaders have also participated in COA's legislative leadership program. As a refresher to many of you, I believe it was 3 years ago that we started a state policy division, and I'm really proud of the CPAN chapter leaders who have gone and got some training specifically on state policy issues. Our CPAN chapter leaders have also spoken at multiple national advocacy events, and through our monthly advocacy chats, and by the way, those you're on advocacy chat right now, so you know what they are. We started this in 2020 as a refresher for all of you, and this was during COVID, and we wanted to find a way to keep advocates engaged and educated. So we started doing the advocacy chats. This year alone, we provided education on 11 different topics, including some of the topics that are most important to COA: pharmacy benefit managers, PBMs, our executive director, leadership team, Ted Ocon and Nick Ferrero's also throughout the year were guests doing federal policy updates. And we also had other just interesting topics that we know our audience was interested in. Cancer wellness is one of them, and health equity. Another way that we keep our advocates educated is through our monthly news bulletin. So again, if you haven't signed up for that, please do and share it. It's a very easy read, but one of the things that we have in there is we'll provide you with national oncology news, and we'll also give you a section called In Case You Missed It, where we'll provide easy links to watch any of the previous advocacy chats. And then again, I'm also very honored and proud, along with my medical co-chairs, to have been invited to speak at various national conferences throughout the year representing COA and CPAN. Next slide, please. Okay, now how often or have you ever seen a cake in a presentation? I know that I never have, but I thought this is such a beautiful cake, and it was such a wonderful surprise that, as you can see from the header of this year we celebrated and welcomed 6 new chapters, and this was very exciting for CPAN. And this beautiful cake was on display when I arrived to do a CPAN chapter launch at Zagmeister Cancer Center in Ohio. And I thought, what a perfect cake, what a perfect image to include in this slide, because it is to me such an honor for a cancer center to say, yes, Rose, we believe in what you're doing. We believe in COA, we believe in CPAN, and you're welcome to come out here and talk to our patients and providers about what community oncology means and the importance of having a CPAN chapter. So the chapters that we launched this year were Cancer and Blood Specialists of Arizona, Central Georgia Cancer Care, Desert Hematology Oncology of Arizona, Oncology Hematology of Loudoun and Reston, at the Center for Cancer and Blood Disorders in Maryland, and Zagmeister, the wonderful people who provided this wonderful cake for us. So, and it was very good, by the way. Next slide, please. Okay, so now I'm going to go through these slides not so quickly, but I want to tell you one thing as we go through this next sequence of slides. It's easy to say, oh, this looks like a familiar picture. Well, it might look familiar, but it's completely different people. And that's what's really incredible is starting with Zagmeister, where we did a launch in April, you could see that I worked here with Dana Zager, who was a social worker at the practice as our leader in helping to get this event off the ground. And she did an outstanding job, as well as Jean Coleman, who's in the front, helped us get that chapter off the ground. And Dr. Noble was one of the medical oncologists who, after a day taking care of patients, still came out to provide a presentation that evening. So it's great to meet all these brand new advocates from Zagmeister Cancer Center. Next slide, please. We also did chapter launch at Cancer and Blood Specialists of Arizona. I worked with Kimberly Morello, who's in the front in the black dress, and Dr. Arcelara. It was an incredible. Each of these events are so interesting. They're, the chapter launches are really incredible because it gives people an opportunity to ask questions and be exposed to COA and CPAN many times for the very first time. So this was another wonderful event. Next slide, please. A completely different group. This was a very interesting practice as well. It was one of the smallest practices in terms of size and location that I've been to in Desert Hematology in Surprise, Arizona. But it's also, I want to talk a few minutes about this slide because it's a reminder to our audience that an independent cancer center can be a single site location and a smaller practice like Desert Hematology Oncology, but it is also places like Texas Oncology and Florida Cancer Specialists, which have hundreds of locations. And again, this is Paige Alacom and Dr. Khan, who helped us get the event off the ground that night. Next slide, please. And the wonderful crew from Central Georgia Cancer Care. Now, we do have other chapters in Georgia, but we did not have one at this particular practice. However, even though we didn't have a formal practice there, we had advocates from the practice who have appeared in some of CPAN's national and COA's campaigns a few years back. I had worked with some other physicians there prior to formally launching it. But what's exciting is that the dedication is there from this practice. And just a fun little note, Dr. Sumrall on the top, he actually came in on his vacation day. So I think, again, that's just another shout out to CPAN and the willingness of physicians to do so much for their patients, because oftentimes, patients, and this makes sense, only see their physician in a clinical role, but they do so much also in other roles. Now we're going to speed through these slides even faster because I'm watching the time here. Okay, so Center for Cancer and Blood Disorders, Dr. Boucher, Michelle Lucan did a fabulous job, another great event. Next slide, please. This was our launch at Loudoun Reston in Virginia, Dr. Nani and Dr. Rajendra, incredible. We had a very big group there that night, and my error, in all the excitement of that evening, forgot to get the first group picture for the first time in 15 years, but we did at least get some of the leadership, and we have a patient on the far right. Next slide, please. Okay, other things that we've done this year in terms of opportunities is we brought advocates out to our national conference. We had advocates from 14 practices, 11 states, and we had 2 of our chapter leaders, Sunshine Markell and Christina Blackburn, who spoke at the event, and we provided multiple media opportunities to several of our advocates who got filmed, and you may see in future COA and CPAN videos. Next slide, please. Okay, this picture you may see, some of it might be new to some of you. We also went out to Capitol Hill. These slides will be available so you can read in detail, but we went out with 3 particular asks or to create awareness, and you can see those. Stop CMS restriction on the delivery of oral cancer meds, advance overdue PBM reform bills, and tackle insurance abuses. And these are just our amazing advocates in these pictures. Next slide, please. I just mentioned the oncologists who take time out of the day to educate our patients on the importance of advocacy. Now we're going to take a quick look at who they are. Next slide, please. And let's do a quick, these are famous faces: Texas Oncology, Tennessee Oncology, Center for Cancer and Blood Disorders, Coastal Cancer, Cancer Center in Middle Georgia, all leaders that are taking time to educate our advocates. Next slide. Cancer and Blood, Desert, Zagmeister, OnKem of Loudoun Reston, and all these incredible physicians educating our advocates. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of them. Our advocacy chats happen monthly. Go on, next slide, please. Just a quick glance and refresher for all of you about all the topics that we've covered. Some of them are policy, some of them are general interest, but we've had a great stellar group of speakers that we've brought to you. Next slide, please. And we're doing it to this very moment. Again, a broad range of topics, a broad range of speakers, all experts in their field. Next slide, please. And to this very moment, we just the last 3 months, we've taught you about the role of pharmacists in community oncology, given you guidance on open enrollment, and then today's chat. So next slide, please. And a quick walkthrough. So what some of us as a CPAN leadership is doing, we're active at the national level as well, whether we're being featured in the media like Dr. Talukian here. Next slide, please. This is an example of me, speaking at a big national event, being interviewed by Journal of Clinical Pathways. Next slide, please. And our other medical co-chair, Dr. Villas, who's also done a lot of national work, but also represents his practice and his COA and CPAN at community events in his state. Next slide, please. The latest Medscape article, this is a fun article to read later, inside the patient oncologist bond, and you have 2 physicians that are part of CPAN chapters and myself that were interviewed. It's a really great article. I hope that you can all look for that and read it. It's a great article. And I think it's also on the COA website. Next slide, please. And now it's time for the speakers. So I went really fast, and so they don't have to, and I asked them to just take a little time, even if they need to. They don't have a lot of slides, but I want them to take their time so they can talk to you about their role. And even though I only have 2 leaders on here today, I do have leaders that work with me all across the country, and I really cannot do the work that I do without them. I'm incredibly grateful for them because they're literally the connection that I need to make CPAN a success. So Angelina, let's start with you.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you for everyone being here today and taking time out of your busy day. My name is Angelina Lorello, and I am our Specialist Advocacy and Patient Experience Coordinator here at New York Cancer and Blood Specialists, and I am our COA Advocacy Leader. Next slide, please. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a background, New York Cancer and Blood Specialists chapter launched in 2013. We have been consistently advocating for community oncology patients and our practices. So the things that we have accomplished. So our patients have shared their stories, our providers share their stories on Capitol Hill, in the media, and at CPAN's website. We participated in national CPAN advocacy events, including COA's National Conference. This year was my first experience in Orlando. I have to say it was such an amazing conference. It was my first conference I've ever experienced in my career. It was very educational. Alongside me, I had 2 breast cancer patients, and it was just a way just to be educated on how much COA does and the importance of it. So it was a great piece, and something that really stood out to me, coming from an Italian background, was Rose had a very intimate dinner for all the advocates and leaders to get together. So that's something that hit close to home, because then, you could put, you can meet everybody, get to know everybody's story. So that was something that really hit home for me. The other thing was COA's Capitol Hill Day. This day was just powerful. Alongside me, I had my 2 breast cancer survivors. I also had one of their mothers who was their caregiver. And it was a way for all of us to sit there and tell our stories to these people that are making these laws, and to really have them understand the importance of community oncology. So that was a very powerful day. The patients that were with us felt so empowered. We went around the room, we got to meet everybody, and once again, we were all like a family trying to make a difference. We also do leader workshops at New York Cancer and Blood Specialists. We have 2 different kinds. So the first we have is our CPAN workshop that we do here at New York Cancer. It's more of like an internal, where our patients come in, we sit with them, we ask them, what could we do better? What would you like to see? Because here at New York Cancer, the patient's perception, we want to improve, because it means a lot to us. But we also have our COA workshop, where I'll either have a light lunch or a light dinner. Our patients come. Rose makes it very easy for me to, work my 2 different roles here, and I'm able to go through slides and, discuss anything that's new or up and coming, or things that, we need to, just be educated on, and our patients love it. So talking about 2025, it's very exciting to, my first meeting that I ever did, I had 1 patient show up. And sometimes when you have that happen, it can be discouraging. But sometimes you can also use that as kind of like a flame, where you want to keep doing more. So exciting news for 2025, we have gained a very big group with male and female to tell their stories. So I'm very excited to see what's to come. We led practice-based and community events, including COA Sit in My Chair event. So we had Mr. Laiota come to one of our more busier locations. And it was a very great experience. We walked him through the patient's journey. So we had him check in at the front. I had Dr. David Eagle along my side to help me through this project. This is my first go. And I have to say, it was a great experience. He was a great guy to work with. We even had him sit in the infusion center. We taped a fake IV to his arm, because my goal is for him to really understand what our patients go through, like soak everything in. We also had Dr. David Eagle sit down and, unfortunately give a fake diagnosis to him. And me and him got to connect because both of our fathers had the same cancer diagnosis. But exciting news for 2025, Mr. Laiota won the November election. So since me and his team built such a great connection, I'm excited to see what it's going to bring us in the year of 2025.
That's wonderful.
So we also, we do a patient appreciation day event here at New York Cancer and Blood Specialists. We do it around the September time. That day is fully dedicated to our patients and their families. The big thing is that patients' families play a very big role in their cancer journey, and that's a way for us to educate, the patients and the family members on COA. We have a table with, all different information that they can just take and read when they get home, and we do that every year. Dr. David Eagle and our late patient experience director, they did a prostate group, and I have to say I did attend it, and it was a very good group. And we provide education on CPAN at multiple community events. Next slide, please. So here's just some pictures of Mr. Laiota when he arrived. I also really wanted to tie in, we went to Hill Day. The topic was about medicine and, having certain laws passed. So I wanted to also tie in Rob. He is our vice president of pharmacy, and that's where our in-house pharmacy is. And I really wanted him to educate Mr. Laiota on the importance of having an in-house pharmacy and how medications and insurance companies and all that stuff. So he came with us in the white coat. We had Dr. David Eagle, myself, and then we also had one of our patient advocates, Mary Lou. Next slide, please. And then this is just some amazing pictures that we had from our Capitol Hill Day. We had a great time and we bonded, and it's all about just making memories and being like a family. Next slide, please. So these are also some pictures. This was my second meeting that I did, and I had not one but two people come, which was great. But I have to say sometimes, and to all the advocates and the leaders out there, is just never give up. And also remember that sometimes you might have a small group, but it's also about the voices that are behind that group that make a difference.
Absolutely.
In the middle is our prostate cancer group. And then touching on the right is an event that I did with New York Cancer and Blood Specialists I put together with the NYPD. It's called Beauty Against Cancer. And why I wanted to add this into my slides is because here was an opportunity that, was something with New York Cancer, NYPD, and beauty. But sometimes when you have an opportunity or a group of people that, are questioning about cancer, that was my way of saying, wait, I'm part of community oncology. This is what community oncology is. And I think it's important that when you get an opportunity, you might be nervous to jump out of your comfort zone, but take that opportunity because it impacted a lot of people. And a lot of people learned what community oncology was. Next slide, please. All right.
Thank you, Angelina. Fantastic work. And I really appreciate your candor because I think that's so important as a leader, is that, of course, when we do events, everybody wants to have a big crowd. But what you said is extremely true. And I've shared that information myself many times in my own leadership role, is that it's better to have, even if you have a small group, that group there, or even that one person, they're there because they really want to be there. And that one person, you use the example of the candle, they really can go out and that just magnifies. So never get discouraged. And thank you again. You've done fantastic work. And I'm so happy to have you on the leadership team. Thank you. So now Cindy, and everyone stay around because Cindy's got great news to share as well.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Rose. My name is Cynthia Przekop. I am the Director of Clinical Operations here at Eastern Connecticut Hematology and Oncology. I've been here for 10 years. Rose, thank you very much for this opportunity. I appreciate you. You have been a mentor for me for many, many years. And Dr. Kapoor is our managing partner and our physician champion. And if anybody knows him, he is a very enthusiastic
Yes.
person, and he has close ties with Rose, and he was very excited, and it was very important for him for us to open up a chapter here. Next slide, please. So we launched in 2019, and I had the same experience that Angelina did. Our first meeting was very small. Our practice it's difficult because we don't have a large conference room or space. So those were some challenges that I faced in the beginning. And then, of course, COVID.
Yes, COVID was huge.
So I had to get creative with how we could spread the word. So our company, we have golf tournaments, galas, and what else do we got going on? Health fairs, social media, and through our website. So we use those to spread the word for CPAN. And when I started here, just aside, I was so naive to what cancer patients experience. I really thought that once you got cancer, you got to go on some sort of disability and your life was able to pause. But unfortunately, that is not the case. And I have seen firsthand what patients have gone through as a nurse. I have patients on the phone sitting there fighting for their growth factor shots because if they don't get them, then they're not going to get their treatment. I've also seen the wonderful aspect of seeing a patient get treatment that otherwise might not have been able to in a timely fashion. We had a large, well-known cancer center contact us about a patient they had that needed to go on a research protocol. It was going to take them 3 weeks to even get them started, but we were able to get them here within the week.
Wow.
Yeah, the physician contacted Dr. Kapoor and he was like, we're going to make this happen. That particular patient had a fantastic response to treatment and is living a great life now.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. Super proud. We participate in the COA's National Conference. I've been to 5 of them. Again, COVID turned out to be problematic for me just starting out.
Yep.
The national conference, I'm excited this year. We're going to have a track because
Yes,
we were able to in the past couple of years. I thoroughly enjoyed and learned so much, not only from you, Rose, the speakers, and the cancer patients that came and were so brave to talk and give their time.
Yes.
I haven't attended a Capitol Hill Day, but that's a goal of mine this year. I would love to go to that and see how that plays out. We do virtual advocacy summits. And we also, I have attended the CPAN leadership workshop, which I also enjoyed. My favorite part of that was being able to network with other sites, because it can feel challenging. And even though we have our meetings, it's nice to be able to have that FaceTime and get, tips and tricks from other practice leaders. So I also have tried for the past couple of years to get somebody to come here to do the sit in my chair event. And this year I went to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and were able to have some one-on-one time with Joe Courtney, who is closely tied to our practice for many, many years. And I talked to him about 340B pricing before he got up to talk, and he got up there and he actually incorporated our conversation into a speech. And then he agreed, and he came to our practice for a sit in my chair event. And it was the same thing Angelina experienced. We had him do it from start to finish. And the best part about that was that the patients were so excited to see him.
Yes, he's a celebrity.
And he had such a good experience. I wrote her name down, Maria Costigan. She is the deputy chief of staff for him, but she also handles healthcare legislation. So she asked to come to our practice, and she did. And she asked us that if they have something that they need to understand better, that they would be able to come here and form a partnership with us.
Wow.
So that was very exciting. I also just recently attended a Ned Lamont meeting, and also again asked a question. His staffer, I didn't get to meet him personally, but the staffer came over at the end and said, I'm so intrigued by what you're talking about that we would really love if you would come to the hearings that pertain to healthcare. So those were two huge wins.
Those are huge wins. And when she says Ned, it's Governor Lamont, correct?
Yeah,
I'm
so sorry. Governor Lamont.
Yes.
Yes.
So these are incredible, just fantastic work, Cynthia.
So I felt confident in approaching both of those situations because I did attend the leadership state retreat.
Wonderful.
And that was amazing. Anybody that's on here that would have an opportunity, you should absolutely go. They teach you what it is to have something come to fruition, like every single step, and how you can intercept or support those particular things that they're trying to pass. And they gave me a list of every contact person in Connecticut to reach out to that could make a difference. So I wrote letters, emails, made phone calls. Some people called back, some didn't.
Yeah.
But, if I feel like our chapter is like the little engine that could. Like, we've gotten to a point where I feel very comfortable and our name is out there in the community. And as you all know, well, you might not know, but in Connecticut, we had 15 community practices. We only have 3. And that is very important to our population because some of them have difficulty with financing. So they have a place to come here, which is substantially less expensive, and you're getting much better care. And
I want to lean in for a second. That's such an important point you made about the 15. At one time, there was 15 community practices, and that's exactly what COA is educating the nation about. Is that at one time it was 84% of cancer patients across the United States were treated in independent cancer centers. That was how COA was founded, and that's exactly what we're doing to this day, is to preserve it. And you just gave a real life example. So those 15 practices, the patients now don't have that quick access. So it's your practice, having these practices is so important to the patients, the community, and to everyone in the state having that access. So thank you for sharing that story.
Of course. Next slide. So these are from our website when we post on social media. And so anytime there's a talk, Tracy is kind enough to send them to me, and that what Rose has marked up. We get them out there, and we also have wall boards that we will run them on. So in the waiting room, and the ones in the patient's room are getting those up and ready. And social media has been big for us. Like I said, we don't have a space. So that is our space to advertise. And next slide, please.
Cindy, and I also want to go in here and just add, because this is an educational advocacy chat as well. I've shared before that, especially for new advocates, oftentimes they think of advocacy as just the big, really cool stuff, which is going to Capitol Hill, is being invited to be a speaker. But advocacy is exactly what Cindy and Angelina have also described. It is when I, as a leader, ask you to help me promote something and you put it on your website or you put a flyer in the office. All those things collectively make a difference. And that's really was my opening sentence, is that we collectively are making an impact. So those social media posts, the website posts are actually huge. So thank you again for that as well. And I know, Angelina, you do a great job with that as well.
Of course. Here's some pictures from when Congressman Courtney came here. You can see Dr. Kapoor hanging out in the background there. He toured our facility, came through our lab, and he was very engaged with all the challenges that we face. And he told us that he's going to do what he can to help ease the burden for our patients. Next slide, please. There's him with a patient. That gentleman was so excited to see him.
Oh,
He
that's
yelled
wonderful.
across the clinic. He's like, "Is that Congressman Courtney?" And he
Wonderful.
heard him and he walked right over to him and talked to him for a while.
That's incredible.
The picture over on the right, that's Dr. Slater. He is the founding father, if you will, of ECHO.
Yeah.
So it was nice for him. He walked right up to him and he was like, "My favorite guy that I vote for every time."
Oh, that's great.
So
That
that
keeps him
was,
coming back too. That's good.
yes. Next slide, please. Is that it?
We have this slide. Do you want to talk
Is
about?
this? Oh, there we go. Sorry, it
Oh,
was a delay.
there's Ned, Governor.
So yes, Governor Ned Lamont. But that is the luncheon that we're standing with Courtney, where we talked to him. That is our patient liaison, Tanya, about 340B, and that's the place where he got up and spoke about it. And that's the thing I just want to share. You don't think that having a simple 3-minute conversation is going to matter. So he took the time with us. He literally 2 minutes later got up there and started talking about 340B.
Incredible.
So, and he had a big audience. The one on the right, Governor Ned Lamont, he was talking about healthcare affordability. And that's when we got up and asked questions. And his staffer came over. She's the one that red jacket to talk to us about potentially going to some hearings. And I think that's it. I really appreciate the time and the opportunity.
Thank you, Angelina and Cindy, and you've done an incredible job. And I also want to thank all of our CPAN chapter leaders across the United States. I've said it many times, I could not do my job without you. You also all inspire me because you come up with new ideas and I see your enthusiasm. And just together, we're doing really great things. And as Cindy mentioned a couple of times, which I appreciate as well, is the reality is that advocacy took a big hit after COVID. So we had to change and pivot how we're doing our advocacy work. We're getting back to somewhat of a new normal, so I'm really excited about 2025, especially the return of the patient advocacy track. So visit the website, and for some of our CPAN chapters, this is good news for you. The very first session at the conference is going to be a closed session for our CPAN chapters, where we'll get to do that networking and reconnecting that means so much to all of us. And again, to our listeners, to anyone who's participated this year, thank you so much for being a part of these advocacy chat. It really means a lot to us, and it means a lot to me personally. So thank you. And as you can see, something that we have been doing since 2020, or since 2021, since we started in 2020, was we kick off the new year by a chat called COA's Crystal Ball. What can we expect in 2025? And we all know there's been enormous changes in the national landscape recently with the election, and there's a lot of changes. So this is going to be a very, very interesting talk. We'll have Ted Ocon, COA's executive director, and Nick Ferrero is the managing director of COA. Thank you again. Have a wonderful holiday season. And please take a look at these slides. They're going to be available on our website, on YouTube, and go back and listen to it. I wanted to make sure, especially the slides that I sped through, all those chapters, speakers, physicians, they deserve so much gratitude from me and hopefully from the universe. Thank you and happy holidays to all of you.